Sorry, I forgot. I almost forgot I was streaming. Yeah. Where? Huh? How? Studying. Yes. Okay, I'm showing the right thing to show. I was half expecting I'm going to pop out some random image that is actually so fucking bizarre that I have no way to defend myself. Which usually, but sometimes happens. And we have reached page. This is page. What page? This is page 189, and there is. Let's see. 189. Sorry. There is approximately 30. I'm saying 15. I'm so bad at math. 30 plus 35 more pages to go. Wait, no. 40 plus more pages to go. God damn it. Suck. I want your cycle, I want your dun. It was Vertigo? Yeah. Shit, I forgot what the lyric is. Love, 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 I want your love. Sorry, I'm fixing shits. Hoopla hoop. There we go. It's page. There's so much page. So many pages. Some dead. Balancing the economy. Oh yeah, we were talking about the World of Warcraft, and now it's chapter 6, unethical game content and effect studies, a critical ethical reading. Thank you. Having a conversation. Wait, what? Unethical game content and effect studies. Oh, the studies? Are we going to talk about studies? Okay. Having a comprehensive framework for describing the ethics of computer game is not only of importance for the specific analysis of games or game genre, it also needs to be applicable as a critical tool to more general moral problems regarding digital games. It is not enough to describe games and their ethics, it is also necessary to put the theory in relation to other research that focus on the moral matters of computer games and explain what the connections are between this other approach and the framework presented in this book. Okay then. For those reasons, I will now focus on two different and relevant ethical issues that regularly come up when thinking about computer games and morality. The ethical implications of unethical game content. Okay. Let me write this. To describe games and their ethics, it is also necessary to put the theory in relation to other research that focuses on the moral matters of computer games and explain what the connections are between these other approaches and the framework presented in this book. For this reason, now, two different and relevant ethical issues that regularly come up when thinking about computer games. Nowadays, the ethical issue is just is the game too woke or not. I hate that. I hate it so much. Why? Why is this the thing? Shut up, fuck up. I really want to mention their names. God damn it. The ethical implication of unethical game content and a study of the moral effects of computer games on their users. What's the difference? Why is the ethical implications of unethical game content and the effects are separate? Wondering about that. The first one refers to computer game that simulate actions that our culture consider unethical. Okay, cool. Our culture, interesting. That simulate actions that our culture considers unethical. It is a general way of referring to issues like violence on computer games. For example, the second one is related to psychological research on the impact this unethical games, violent games, Miguel Ruiten, have on villain games. On psychological? Is that how you're? What? What's a psychological? Psychology is a scientific study relating to branch of biology that deals with the normal functioning of living organism and their. I think Miguel types the wrong one and doesn't realize it. I'm not sure. Relating to the way in which body of living things work. Psychology? Is that what you mean, Miguel? Maybe it is psychological. I'm not sure. And mental behaviors. In this chapter, I will provide a brief introduction to each topic from the perspective of the ethical framework analysis. Okay. I'll provide a brief introduction to each topic from the perspective of the ethical framework analysis. So, for example, I started this book by reminding the readers about commonplace computer games tend to occupy in our society, the bullseyes of morality. Violent computer games, which are nowadays ubiquitous, pose interesting ethical challenge because the actions they simulate, actions the player has to do in order to progress the game, appears to be of a highly unethical nature. Genocide, Undertale. Down. Compute games which are nowadays ubiquitous pose interesting ethical challenges because the actions they simulate. But I have argued that computer games ethics are actually a rather complex construct that has to take into consideration beyond the worlds represented by the games. Complex construct that has to take into consideration beyond the worlds represented by games. The presence of a Okay, the presence of a moral player who interacts with a design system of rules, mechanics, and processes. It is my intention here to analyze the nature of this ethical concern regarding the content and effect of computer games, keeping in mind applying the findings about the nature of player as moral being and the ontology of games as ethical design system. Alright. 6.1 Understanding Unethical Game Content. Let's go. When creating a simple game regardless of demand for innovation or originality, an approach that often works is to focus on conflict, make the player fight for limited resources, or make players try to temporarily eliminate others from the playing field, rewarding that action with tokens of some value in the game. Okay? Demands for innovation or originality. Approach that often works is to focus on conflict, either by making them fight for limited resources or making them fight to gain more resources on each other. In our Western audiovisual culture, this is written for Western audience, this book? We are also used to conflict, from Homer to the myth of the Wild West. Conflict is an interesting source for reflection and action, and as such we have used it in media to convey message and to entertain. Indeed it is. Some even have adopted it as a world point of view, in that everything is made up of conflict. To convey messages and to entertain. The combination of games with sexual presenting interesting conflict and our media landscape often result in games that use in their representational layer the metaphors and actions of violence to convey conflict. So conflicts and violence are separate. Not separate, exactly. Every violence is a conflict, right? No? One could not be a conflict of interest. I'm not sure. Is violence always associated with conflict? I'm interested to know that. The combination of games which excel at presenting interesting conflict and our media landscape often results in games that use in their representational layer the metaphors and actions of violence to convey conflict. This violence is, as I have already mentioned, at the core of some of the ethical concern raised by computer games. Should we have a medium that is so focused on violent conflict? Is there any effect of violence on its users? It is obvious that the obsession of the computer game industry with weapons and bloods raises interesting ethical questions. But which are these questions, and more importantly, how can we answer them? It is time now to put our analytical framework into practice on one of the most relevant matters regarding morality in computer games. But before I start, I would like to go back to Manhunt, which I have referred to before as an interesting example of ethical gameplay. The game basically consists of perfecting the murderous skills of our in-game avatar by crafting gruesome execution while starring in a fictional snuff movie. Manhunt is well known for its complex sense regarding gore and violence simulated action, and when released, it stirred some controversy concerning the relations between computer games and violence. This relation, often picked up by media as an argument against growing popularity of computer games as a means of adolescent entertainment, is one of many examples of societal concern over the impact of unethical content in computer games. What is the unethical content of Manhunt, or of any violent game? By unethical content, I'm referring to the simulation of action that, outside the simulated game world, we deem ethically despicable. Mm-hmm. Outside the simulated game world, we deem ethically in- despicable, not impossible. Why did I write impossible? Maybe I was thinking about this impossible lady. Torture, for instance, is generally conceived of as an immoral way of gaining information, since it attacks the very foundation of personality and humanity. Nevertheless, in 24, the game, torture becomes a set of gameplay mechanics that the player has to exploit in order to progress. I've never seen 24 the games. What is this? Sounds neat. Uh, I'm kind of scared of like the image I'm seeing. But oh no, it's on PlayStation 2. What do you call it? The poster, the thumbnail. Shit, I don't know. It looks kind of weird. Oh yeah, I can see the torture room. Okay, that's so funny. Wait, it's based on the film. That's why. Wait, is it based on the film or it has film based on it, or does it like have photorealistic stuff? Actually, I'm not sure. Let me check. Wait, what? Uh huh. Yeah, it is. It is based on the Fox Hill television series in before. Let's see. Huh. 24 is the longest running American espionage or counterterrorism themed television drama, surpassing both Mission Impossible and Britain's The Avengers. What? It's impossible. Ew. Ew, I don't like this. I'm just gonna say that. It has 9 seasons, 224 episodes. Cool. 204 episodes plus 24. Wait. Oh, sorry. 204 plus 24 redemption. What the hell? Wait, Plus 1 then. Okay then. The naming kinda confuses me. It ends on 2014. 24 Live Another Day. 24 Legacy. Who plays this? I feel like I've seen the face. No. Who's the actor? Terry Power, Leslie Hope. Wait, what? I yeah, I don't think they're showing the right image for it, so I was quite confused. Kiefer Sutherland. Let's see, what movies do you play? Legal Issues, ew. Let's see, Down in a Hole. No, that's oh wait, music videos. Interesting. But wait, what movies do you play in? No, nothing. Okay, political. Oh no, terrifying. Oh, hello, Alex. What's good? Welcome. I am looking at 24 the game, which apparently is a game what do you call it? Based on the 24 TV series, which is apparently the longest. Let's see, the longest running American espionage or counterterrorism themed television drama, surpassing both Mission Impossible and Britain the Avengers, which is terrifying. So that's why like the image of the game was like kind of weird. Let me grab it. Can I grab it? How do I grab this? I want your love. That's too big. But yeah, like this, you can see that I see the what do you call it? Thumbnail cover of the game, and I was like, why does it look like a photorealistic shits? And then it turns out it is because it's based on a like movie. It's I don't know. I feel like it's kind of it seems like it sucks. I'm not sure. But yes, we are still studying the ethics of computer games, and Miguel is now delving into the discussion about the unethical game content, which at his era would be about violence, and could be discussed further, of course, later on, if we want to. Let's see. Nevertheless, in 24, the game torture becomes a set of gameplay mechanics that the player has to exploit in order to progress. And as in any computer game, the simulation of torture is designed in a way that makes it interesting to play with. This does raise ethical issues that needs to be addressed, but it is not violence per se that is interesting. It is violence as something interesting and a challenge with it. And a challenge within the experience. So it's not the violence itself that is interesting, but the way the violence is being portrayed. That is interesting? No, not being portrayed. But the way that the violence is being used as a tools that is interesting. Yeah? Let's see. It is not violence per se that is interesting. It is violence as something interesting and a challenge within the experience of a computer game. Unethical content is the actions that are designed to simulate what we would consider unethical behavior outside of the game, but also simulation that in themselves can be considered unethical. I see. Actions that are designed to simulate what we would consider unethical behavior outside the game, but also simulations that in themselves can be considered unethical. For instance, in the game Soldier of Fortune 2, never heard of it. Let's see, what kind of game is it? Soldier of Fortune 2. Miguel plays a lot of FPS games. Why is it photorealistic? I'm kinda scared. You know what? I'll give it a pass. I think Counter-Strike also has a photorealistic, what do you call it? Cover back then? Counter-Strike 1.6, let's see. No, maybe it's slightly photorealistic. Counter-Strike 0? How about Counter-Strike? Nope, I guess not. This one looks so it's actually a photo of a person, that's why it's photorealistic. Alright then. I don't know. Seems decent, no? Why do they have someone dressed up as Georgie from from fucking not Hello. What do you call it? Fuck. IT. ET? Whatever, that clown thing. Georgie has grown up and seeking revenge. Crying, shaking. We'll float down here, Georgie. Soldier for they have had explosion mech things. Does Counter-Strike have had explosion? Oh no, Georgie's dead. They killed off Georgie. They killed off Georgie in the game. This is so sad. Soldier of Fortune 2. Not gonna lie, seems from the photo might be interesting, but I'm not sure. Are they throwing knife? Wait, what? Is that all the image that? No, there's more image. What are you doing then? You stupid. Fucking hell. Ooh, you can blow limbs off. I like that. Uh-huh. Is this a mod? Wait, is this a mod? Wait, what am I looking at? No, it's not. It's just a compilation of the babes. The games. The game babes. Soldier of Fortune. Interesting, okay. What was I? The developers included a physical simulation that gives the human model 36 gore points. Oh yeah, I can see that. I was like talking about that actually. Now Miguel's talking about it. So the players can actually dismember her enemies in realistic ways. The degree of carnage and the possibility for the player to inflict it present ethical issues related to the construction of the game world and the possibilities of interacting with it. Okay. For instance, in the game Soldier of Fortune 2, Fortune Cookies, the developers included a physics simulation that gives the player the ability to dismember their enemies. Cool. In a realistic way, yeah. Oh, I'm not gonna lie, my most favorite thing to do in like a Resident Evil game is just to blow the head of zombies. Like, I don't know why, it's just so aesthetic. The ethical concerns about unethical content in computer game has been, needless to say, a long-standing one, a controversy that is almost as old as computer games. A look at computer game history takes us back to two landmarks, Death Race and Castle Revenge. I know about Castle Revenge. Weird thing. Death Race. Okay, but you know what? Yeah, Castle Revenge is weird, but at the same time. This game pushed the ethical boundaries of what computer games could simulate for entertainment. Death Race was an arcade game that basically consisted of racing a car over pedestrian. Of course, both the car and the pedestrians were crude pixels that required a player imagination to actually fulfill the gruesomeness of the gameplay, which is okay. I don't really see Death Race as a controversial thing nowadays, I'm not gonna lie. Castle Revenge, the other games I'm dictating here, was an Atari 2600 games in which the player had to navigate from one end of the screen to the other, avoiding arrows. If the player was successful, yeah, Castle Revenge is much more controversial, maybe. She was rewarded with terrible stuff of a female Native American title Paul, which also gave in-game points in a terrible act of poor game design. Thank you, Miguel. The game design is poor. It's basically a game for Gunnar at 2000. When was Atari 2000? Well, you know what? I shouldn't search for Atari. I should search for the game itself. 1982. It's basically a Gunnar game for 1982 people. A weird, a rather what do you call it? Rather to the weird side of Gun. Interesting. 1982. But damn, what happens in 1982? I'm checking the Wikipedia page to see what happens in like 1982 besides other shits because I'm curious. You can like check what happens in the years just by like opening the Wikipedia page and it shows you a bunch of shits that happens during that year. Ooh, there's a plane crash. 2 plane crash. Wait, 3 plane crash? What? 3 plane crash at the start of year 1982. That's crazy. Actually, yeah, 2025 has a lot of plane crash too, apparently, so that's kind of bad. Election of the first computer virus is found. Oh, it's 1982. Written by 15-year-old Rich Scrant. What? What are you doing? What are you doing as a 15 years old, huh? Look at this person. 1982. Already developed the first computer virus. Al Cloner. It infects Apple II computer via floppy disk. What does Al Cloner do? As a 15-year-old high school student, originally as a joke and put into a game disc. Okay, it's just a virus that shows like poem. It's funny. Senegal, Gambia, the Ham massacre. Oh no, Syrian prison. This all Assad. Oh yeah, terrible shit is happening during the year. FIFA World Cup. Interesting. I'm gonna close that. Let's go back to Death Race. Castor Revenge. Ew. If a player is successful, she was rewarded. Yeah, there are two shameful cases in the history. These are two shameful cases. I'm not sure. Death Race, not really. But Castor Revenge, yeah, I guess. Let's see, Death Race. Actually, let me see what. Oh, it's based on a movie. Oh, I watched the movie. I kind of like it. Actually kind of like the movie. It's a little bit corny, but yeah. No, Death Race is. Nope, it isn't that bad. Not gonna lie. But this book was written in 2009, so I can see that. These are two shameful cases in the history of computer games, but the polemic they created is alive and present today, so much so that it has even permeated the political discussions in the Western world. For instance, there's a strong debate in the United States regarding legislation against selling computer games to minors. Ooh, no. What era is this? Let's see. There's a footnote, so you can check it. Game Politics, I'm pretty sure it was updated. So, gamepolitics.com, legislation, /legislation. Okay. Is it still active? I don't think it's still active. Revenge, I want your love. Love, 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 I want your love. I'm obsessed with the bad romance. The site doesn't work. Cool, I cannot check it. But I know that I know there's. Is there some states that still want to ban this game? I know some country does that, but in the US nowadays, maybe. Let's see, where was I again? No, I cannot. Okay, there we go. Perhaps the best known contemporary example of this controversy is the Grand Theft Auto franchise. Yeah. These games are pioneers in the use of large 3D open-ended environments. It's so interesting to see this switch of everything because like all of these are viewed as like controversial back then, but nowadays it's just almost everyone. No, not almost everyone. A lot of people already play GTA, so and also Steams and other sites are much more comfortable in showing games that might be considered unethical by some people. By purists mostly. These games are blah 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 blah, but they are not only about exploration of simulated urban landscapes. In this games, players experience a set of narratives that are more than reminiscent of underworld cinematic epics, like Scarface or Boys in the Hood. I never heard of Boys in the Hood. I've heard about Scarface. Never watched both. In this sense, the Grand Theft Auto series is the computer games what Goodfellas never watched that, or The Sopranos never watched that, were to the cinematographic representation of urban American crime. The Grand Theft Auto series has been singled out regularly as one of the most unethical games. This is in 2009. Let's see. Actually, GTA Violence 2009. I want to know what's the discussion. No? Yeah, I cannot find. Is there a way for me to search online about specific article dates? Yeah, custom range. Thank you. Up 2009 to 2010. Yeah. Oh yeah. Wow. Okay. Interesting. It is a discussion that is going on. Look at this. Wrong. How do I? There we go. Sure. Why am I struggling? Grand Theft Auto, is it good for you? This is in 2009, 2010. How violent is this game? Grand Theft Auto 5, 2005. Doctor claims video games don't lead to violence. Yeah, they're still fighting about it in this era. Video games addiction, askman.com. What? Supreme what? What do you mean askman.com? Balance in media, APA is here. Fascinating. Like if you try to search, if I'm okay, I could be wrong, but let's see. I feel like the article has a very different vibe nowadays. Like you can see this is 2003, and this one is not sure when. I'm not sure when. Yeah, actually, you could see the change of like the top and everything here. A 10-year study. Yeah, see, even there's a thing that there's a video that defends 10 years ago actually. Fascinating. Okay, maybe the perspective doesn't change. And I'm not sure. I think it changed a little. Where was I again? Perhaps because most of the Grand Theft Auto series has been singled out regularly as one of the most unethical games. Perhaps because most of the interaction of the players are allowed in the game are in fact simulation of unethical acts like robbery, murder, blackmail, carjacking, prostitution, and the like. Nevertheless, in the world of Grand Theft Auto, crimes have a price. If the player commits a crime close to a police officer, she will start being chased by the police with differing intensity depending on the nature of the crime. And if the player gets caught, she will lose some money, lose all her weapons, and fail in the mission on which she was embarked. I don't really play GTA, so I don't really know shits. Another example of a rather different nature is the game Killer 7, in which player commit highly stylish murders. I never heard of Killer 7, so let me check. What does it look like? It actually looks cool. It actually looks cool. It's by Capcom? Is it? Yeah, it's Capcom. Oh, fascinating. Look at this guy on the, like, right here. My cursor is not being shown, so that's not helpful, actually. There we go. Yes, look at this guy right here. Just aura farming. Can I should adjust this whole screen. Why, what am I clicking? There we go. Look at that, that's kinda cool, isn't it? The assassin, blah blah blah. I'm kinda scared that the fact that the image is kinda limited, so there's that. Like, let's see. There are 7 in which players commit highly stylized murders in semi-abstract environments. These murders are full of gameplay-relevant gore since the blood of their enemies give player better powers and killing capacities. The game will be considered unethical because engaging in rejoicing in murder and blood, whether or not it is in stylized fashion, is unethical in itself. Similarly, in the case of Grand Theft Auto 5 City, players can have simulated sex with a prostitute for money and then beat her up to recover the payment. These gameplay mechanics give player a bonus in health that is useful for accomplishing more complicated missions, but it is also deemed to be unethical for what it represents. Okay. Represents. In general, the controversy surrounding other games is based on the argument that games marketed to children and adolescents should not be violent or depict unethical actions, and furthermore, computer games, due to their interactive nature, should not simulate these actions, because interacting in immoral ways, even in a game world, is enacting unethical actions and is therefore wrong, the wrong thing to do from a moral perspective. That's the argument that people pose. So how will Miguel answer it then? Wait, let me read that. Games marketed to children and adolescents should not be violent. That's the argument. Computer games, due to their interactive nature, even in a game world, is enacting unethical actions. And is therefore the wrong thing to do from a moral perspective. And Miguel, how do you answer this? The logic behind considering these game world actions unethical action is based on the fact that the game excels at as a simulating device. excel as simulating device. Most computer games are simulation with which the players engage voluntarily. Does people complain a lot the same way with books and shit? Actually, yeah, maybe, kinda. I'm not sure, actually. Most computer games are simulations with which the player engages voluntarily with the intention of creating a ludic experience. In this simulation, the player has to interact with the environments in predetermined ways. Oh, sorry, my throat isn't feeling good. There we go. It should be fixing itself. In the process of sex mechanics from Grand Theft Auto City, the player engages in sex and then kills the computer-controlled character in order to get the money back. All of these are actions performed in the context of simulations where they are relevant. The way of interacting with most computer games is through input and output procedures that presents a semantic layer with which we, a cultural player, can relate and understand. Wait, I'm trying to understand this better. All of these actions performed in the context of a simulation where they are relevant. The way of interacting with most computer games is through input and output procedures that present a semantic layer with which we cultural players can relate and understand. Basically saying that, yeah, computer game has output, input, and you see shits, like, they show you through the visuals or audio and you understand what's happening. The procedures that present a semantic layer with which we, cultural players, can relate and understand. Formally, the sex mechanic is a set of algorithms based on game rules by which players acquire an extra amount of energy after exchanging some in-game tokens. Formally, okay. The sex mechanic. Sex is a set of algorithms. Algorithms? Yes, thank you. Based on game rules by which players acquire an extra amount of energy after exchanging some in-game tokens. These tokens can be recovered afterward by means of different input mechanics. To make this information exchange easier to understand, developers use conventions, representation that help players interact with the game world. Yes. And sometimes the developer even needs to add direct text and everything else to explain what is happening because people still don't understand shits, which is true, by the way. I see like a lot of people are complaining, oh, there's so much, what do you call it? Games nowadays shows too much shits, like guide people too much, let players be players. Like, bro, I swear to God, like, I think a lot of people who plays games and just like getting thrown there without all those yellow lines and everything will just get lost. Representation, even with the yellow lines already there, by the way. Developer use convention representation that help players interact with the game world. These conventions are more often than not based on what we will define as unethical actions. Will define as unethical actions. And there is where the root of the ethical problem lies. Is it appropriate to simulate unethical actions? What are the consequences of simulating these actions, both for the players and for the developers? Is it morally correct to develop these games? This issue can be understood and partially explained by referring to virtue ethics due to its cultural impact on and its presence in Western culture. Virtue ethics. Appropriate to simulate unethical actions can be traced to can be understood by referring to virtue ethics. From a virtue ethic perspective, computer games like Grand Theft Auto, Killer 7, or Manhunt are unethical because they reward the practice of unethical actions, which I've already said way long ago. That people can argue that. That people can argue that way. Hey, this is unethical, you know? To become a good individual who fully develops the values of good, humans being have to practice these values of good. Ethic perspective. It is unethical to play games that rewards the practice of unethical actions. To become a good individual who develops some practices of the good. Virtuousness is the development of good virtues by means of exercising them, which we do by developing our good moral values and our practical judgments, which will help us make the right choice in the face of ethical dilemmas. Virtue ethic is about practicing the good. Yes, because it's a practical ethic. Practicing the good. What kind of good? I don't know. Playing certain computer games then would be deemed by a classic virtue ethic approach as an unethical practice, yes. To play Grand Theft Auto would mean to actually engage in actions that build the wrong values. Hold on, my throat is feeling unwell, so BRB. Okay, I'm back. Let's go. Let's do this. Practicing good. There's nothing. To play Grand Theft Auto would mean to actually engage in actions that build the wrong values. Theoretically, there's nothing good to be learned from this glorification of urban North American virtue ethic in all its different incarnations throughout the history of humanity, from Aristotle to Confucius, which is also virtue ethics, apparently. I don't really remember what it is. To play GTA would mean to actually engage in actions that build the wrong values. Theoretically, that's not how you write theoretically. Theoretically? No? Theor? Is it theor? Yes. Theoretically. What did I write different? Huh. There is nothing good to be learned from this glorification of urban North American crime. There remains a number of virtues and values that needs to be fostered, and computer games could foster those values by means of their interactive capacities. Games like Peacemaker try to act within this perspective. This game focuses on simulating the Israel-Palestine conflict, and it does so by creating a system in which player. This is written in 2009, by the way. The conflict is still fucking going. The genocide is still fucking going, and it fucking sucks. How many years? I don't know, dude. It's so fucking depressing. That was 20 years? No, was it 20 years ago? Fuck. That was 10 years ago. 15 years ago. Yes, 16 years ago. Yeah, 16 years ago. It has been what, 75 years since the occupation of Palestine? I think it's around 70 years, right? 1948. Oh, nope, it's not. Well, it's not 75 years. No, wait, actually, it's 77 years. Wait, am I mistaken about my calculation? Amnesty International wrote 50 year of dispossession on 7 June 2017. Is that 50 years? I think the Gaza Strip and the West Bank were occupied by Egypt and Jordan respectively since 1948. Okay, wait. Oh, it's a different thing. Alright. Israel is on 1967, yes? Or something. Shit, there's a lot of stuff that I don't really understand, don't really know here. And now, wait, shit, I lost my position. That's just depressing as well. Games like Peacemaker, and it does so by creating a system in which players, to a larger extent, can afford their own ethical values to the process to solve the simulated conflict. Furthermore, Peacemaker actually reward the choice of non-violent conflict resolution, thus building on a classic virtue ethic proposal. Good ethical games are those that foster the development of good virtues and knowledge. Question mark. On the other hand, and from this perspective, games like Killer 7, Manhunt, and Grand Theft Auto series are games that enforce wrong habits. By playing this game, the virtuous beings engage in actions that are morally wrong, and yet they are both the only actions possible in that simulated world. Are games that enforce wrong habits? Yeah. Virtue ethics would argue that computer games with unethical content actually reinforce habit and practice and habits that ought not to be present in the virtuous human being, and that to commit an act of unethical meaning within a game world is to practice the wrong habits that will lead to the non-virtuous life. Cool. Enforce practices and habits that out hates. I'm still waiting for Dragon Ball to continue. I haven't watched Dragon Ball Daima. I kind of want to watch it, but not to be present in the virtuous human being, and that to commit an act of unethical meaning within a game world is to practice the wrong habits that will lead to non-virtuous life. Of course, then we will dive into the criticism of virtue ethic. First of all, you kind of fucking suck. That's not really a criticism, isn't it? The reasoning permits the conventional arguments against unethical content in computer game players. Players of violence game, for instance, are practicing the habit of killing, losing the capacity for attachment to human life, and blurring the notions of good and evil. And here's where, when we are starting to dissect the virtue ethics criticisms, we can also dissect the research that are being shown. For example, it shows, hey, people that play violent video games become much more violent. Okay, then we can dissect it there. What does the violence here mean? Is it like based on virtue ethic type of shit? So like it proves, oh, they become non-virtuous. Are they becoming non-virtuous? Really becoming non-virtuous? Is virtue ethics the proper thing to be used here? We'll see. Even in propaganda games like the U.S. Army, America's Army, these ideas about the relation between playing games and developing or moral virtues are present. America Armies is intended to be both a training tool and recruitment advertisement. America Army is like the game for army recruitment. It's kind of weird. It can only be so if we consider computer games. Imagine Amazon makes a game about working in Amazon. It's that type of shit. I just like, no, thank you. No, please, no. Like, in order to recruit people to work in Amazon, that'll be terrifying if Amazon did that. Or what? Netflix. I think Netflix gaming scene has like fallen down. They tried to like delve into gaming stuff, but they fail. It's a Netflix game. I'm not sure. I could be wrong. Netflix shut down Story's mobile game franchise 2 days ago. Clapping. Can you all hear that? Actually, no. My microphone did a good job at censoring my claps. Yeah? Nope. I think it did a quite good job on that. 20. Wait. No. This is 22 hours ago. Netflix is trying to. I'm not sure. Maybe they're still trying hard. Interesting. But yeah, imagine like Netflix creating a game about working in Netflix for recruitment. That's terrifying. It can only be so if you consider computer games to act as exercise of moral habits. The game can only be effective if the habits and values contained in the game simulation are directly transferred to the players, who will uncritically accept them. Okay, cool. Consider computer games to act as exercise of moral habits. The game, yeah. See, this is the point. Like if your review is based on virtue ethics, and then you read the study, oh yeah, okay, so it cultivates violent behavior. Well, do you? Sorry, I'm adjusting a it. Well, not exactly. The game can only be effective if the habits and values contained in the game simulation are directly transferred to the players, who will uncritically accept them. This is beyond the purely instrumental use of this game as a recruiting tool. I could write this about studies. This is beyond the purely instrumental use of this game as a recurring tool. The ultimate goal of propaganda games is to spread idea convincingly to the player population to serve as interactive brainwasher. There is to date no conclusive data that empirically proves this argument. It will be surprising to actually find this argument true, but there will still be large ethical steps between being persuaded by a game and being morally affected, due to the player ethical capacities for reflection and context. Interesting. Due to the player ethical capacities for reflection and context. Yeah, cool. But let's return to virtue ethics, since the theory makes one point which I can only agree. Computer games could foster good virtues, such as non-violent conflict-solving skill, by means of their design, their gameplay, and their game worlds. Nevertheless, the approach that links games with unethical content development of vice and unethical behavior lacks an understanding of the inner workings and nature of computer games. Yes, thank you. A more classic Aristotelian would argue that computer games with unethical content could be seen as games that foster a kind of player catharsis. Ooh, catharsis, I love that word. This perspective, argued by some scholars within the field of game research, is not adequate, in my opinion. Okay, I could write that. Computer games with unethical content could be seen as games that foster a kind of player catharsis. Catharsis is some sort of a breakout from the of a reality breakout, of which then you will recollect yourself and it will strengthen your virtue, as far as I remember. Let me see. Catharsis. Aristotle. Dramaturgy. Oh no. The first recorded use of the term is a mental sense whereby Aristotle comparing the effects of music and tragedy on the mind of a spectator to the effect of catharsis in the body. Okay, what is it? What is it about, Aristotle? What? Where? This one, that's a PDF, but I don't want to open it. University of Hawaii, help me. Aristotle described catharsis as the purging of the emotion of pity and fear that are aroused in the viewer of a tragedy. Debate continues about what Aristotle actually means by catharsis, but the concept is linked to the positive social function of tragedy. What's the positive social function of tragedy? Anyway, it basically says that you see tragedy, you cry, you break out of your reality, and then you develop a more better virtue somehow. Which I fucking forget how to explain it. If I can find a more finer definition, it will help. Yeah, okay. It's a bunch of explanation about. Yeah, it's the process of catharsis. What does catharsis do? I don't need to know the process. No. No, no, nope, nope. Ah, yeah, this one. This one should do. Catharsis is when the audience feels intense pity or sadness, so the contents of characters of literature and plays that results in the audience feeling happier or refreshed afterward due to the extreme purging of emotions. Aristotle argued that tragedy cleansed by the heart through pity and terror, purging us of our petty concerns and worries by making us aware that there can be nobility in suffering. In your own words, no, I won't do that. Thank you. I'm terrified. I'm terrified. I feel the gaze of my professor from the heavens above. They're still alive, by the way. My professor is still alive, so no worries. But I can feel their eyes like in a panopticon, like I'm a prisoner. Player catharsis. I'm lost. Where was I? This perspective, argued by some players who feel is not adequate in my opinion with regards to the ethic of your games. For catharsis to work, there must be a unified subject that plays the game and is affected by it, meaning that there is not a player subject. Oh, okay, interesting. Interesting argument, actually. Oh, I didn't know. To work, there must be a unified subject that plays the game and is affected by it, meaning that there is not a player PP subject. What's a PP subject? PP, huge PP. And the values we play by are the exact values we define. That's the catharsis argument. The catharsis argument doesn't really fit because it requires us to view it from the lens of being a whole human being, which when we are playing a game, it's not exactly that because we detach ourselves as a player being, you could say, instead of like a full human being, which with its own values. So yeah, it's a different values type of shit. In this book, I argue that the player is a specific subjectivity that comes to the being in the experience of game, a subjectivity that actually presents specific characteristic derived from the ludic experience of the game as a moral object. Yes, from the repertoire that they have built from playing other games or maybe hearing about other games or shits. The understanding of the unethical content of computer games then has to take into consideration that playing games is also the act of creating the player's subject. Sorry, the understanding of them it has to take consideration that playing games is also the act of creating the player subject as an operative moral being who interprets her acts within the game from an ethical perspective. The virtue ethic-based analysis that permits the public understanding of this PP subject. Yes, so true. PP. What do you mean PP subject? It's PP subject. Subjecting PP. I love PP. So cool. Really fine. I'm lost. Where was I? Where's the PP? There's the PP. Understanding then the plans also the virtue ethic-based analysis that permit the public understanding of this issue does not consider that players are capable of applying ludic processes. Like basically saying that virtue ethic doesn't consider that people can think for themselves, can critically think for themselves. Someone's boiling water. I can hear it from here. That's very loud. Should I turn off the water or should 10 seconds, and if it doesn't stop, I'm gonna go out and turn off the water. Yeah, fine, I'm gonna go out and turn off the water, BRB. Okay, I'm back. Let's go. Players are capable. Where? Of applying ludic phronesis. Phronesis. Not only foster their own virtues, but that they also have ethical values of their own, which have to be understood within. Yeah, I don't need to write it. In other words, the player Grand Theft Auto is seeing the simulation of Villain X within the game world not only with her ethic as a human being outside the game, but also with the ethics of the game player. Unless I have argued before, the player interprets her action as contradictory, using stronger ethical values from herself outside of the game, in which case the subjectification process is broken and there is not a player subject experiencing a game. Cool. Being outside the game, but also with the ethics of the game player. Outside the game. Cool. The subjectivization process is broken and there is not a player subject experiencing a game. A game. In any case, it is the player, with player ethics, values, and understanding, that is the subject that affects and is affected by ethical content of the game. To play a game is to become a player in a ludic experience, which also implies developing the player virtues and the understanding of games as interpretable simulations. Player engage in unethical actions in computer games because those actions have meaning within the game for the player's subject. Whatever the reason is, they do it. Killing the prostitute after having sex with her is the most rational approach. Is it? The player gets her energy level topped up and she recovers the money. From the perspective of the game, it is an action that can be beneficial for the game experience. Furthermore, it is not compulsory. Only player who voluntarily explore the possibility will be exposed to it. Similarly, the acts of violence in Killer 7 are only meaningful to the player of the game, and they are so because they represent the challenges that have to be solved in order to progress the game. Therefore, it is necessary to understand that the unethical content of a game does not affect the virtuous being outside the game world, unless in her process of interpretation of the game experience, her external ethical values play a role by means of encountering a taboo of some sort. It is the player as moral being who encounters and experiences this unethical content. Could there be a transfer of values? In a mature ethical being, both as players and outside the game, that would not happen. The process of ludic phronesis and its evaluation by the external subject avoid in principle the transfer of values within the given condition of moral maturity. There we go. Well, keyword, moral maturity, so. Moral maturity. Oh my god, today is so interesting because I like watch shits about Grumps and the fun fact guy, and it just like, I don't like this. I don't like where this is going. This is a process in which ludic practical judgment plays a role, introducing a relevant competitor's perspective. If a subject has developed ludic practical judgment very virtuous, does it become impossible for a game unethical content to have an effect on the self outside the game? No, it could still give effect. Introducing a relevant competitor's perspective. Prac- practical, practical judgment plays a role. Caveat. At the game, the player has to have the ludic maturity to understand the reason behind this emotion and the fact that she is interacting with the game world, world specifically designed to produce a ludic experience. This implies that games with unethical content should only be experienced by users who have developed the ludic maturity to understand the experience of playing a game. Therefore, age regulation codes and the moral education of game consumers and developers have a crucial roles in the ethical configuration of computer games as object and experience. Okay, cool. Virtue ethics can be right when analyzing the unethical content of computer games in the case of immature users. Uh-huh. Interacting with computer games that present unethical simulation may cause trouble for those who have not developed the interpretational tools that are used when developing the player virtues. This trouble has to do with the necessity of developing the moral understanding of player subject and how it relates to the larger subject outside the game. Games with unethical content should only be marketed and consumed by virtuous players. Hold on. This page 1. Interesting. Interesting. You can still continue forward, I guess. mature users. Interacting with computer games that present an ethical simulation may cause trouble for those who have not developed the interpretation tools that are used when developing the player features. This trouble has to do with the necessity of developing the moral understanding of the player's subject and how it relates to the larger subject outside the game. Games with unethical content should only be marketed to and consumed by virtuous players, those players' subjects who have actually developed their ethical reasoning. How do we know that the games actually is consumed by virtuous players? This is this is why. This is why it's so hard to do shits, okay? Those player subjects who have actually developed their ethical reasoning. Let's take, for instance, Grand Theft Auto Vice City. A player of this game ought to understand that what she is interacting with is similar to urban American environment, heavily inspired by cinema cliches where violence. I'm just asking a question, buddy. Yeah, that's true, but you're saying that should be marketed. Yeah, should, but how? A player of this game ought to be understand too that what she is interacting with is similar to where violence is the main means of interacting with players and practicing the game. Furthermore, the first players of Grand Theft Auto City, when performing the specific game mechanic, should be aware that she is actually increasing her chance of passing a challenge by means of exchanging game tokens in the most efficient way. All of this is wrapped in a perfect simulation that the player understands is only meaningful within the game because the meaning is related to the game system. Simulation that the player understands is only meaningful within the game because the meaning is related to the game system. This kind of logic harnesses, I would say, takes time to develop to become players, not only a synchronic process of subjective vision that takes place when creating a game, but is also a diachronic process. Oh no. Yeah, it's a synchronic process by which players create their history and culture in their time spent playing games. I love it. Player subjectivity is who we are and how we morally relate to the things when experiencing a game, but it is also who we have been in our ludic experience history. Oh. Chronic process of subjectivization that takes place when experiencing game, but is also a diachronic process by which players create their history and culture in the time spent playing games. Player subjectivity is who we are and how we morally relate to things when experiencing a game, but it is also who we have been in our ludic experience history. Cool. The ethical content of games has to be relative to the moral maturity of the player as an interpreter of her actions within the game experience. What are then the ethical implications of within ethical game content? If the player is a fully mature player by subject, the implication may be a paradox. For those players, the use of computer games as a means of expressing interesting events and ideas must be obvious. The game designer of the Super Columbine Massacre RPG in the forums, his setup for discussing his game is appealing to these mature users of computer games. He believes that his game has to be understood as a mature game for mature players, a game that fosters discussion. And this is only possible if players are a mature moral subject who understands and uphold the ethics of being a player subject. Cool. I forget to unmute myself. I'm back. Sorry. There was someone in my room, so we have to talk for a little bit and there's that. Mm-hmm. If the player is a fully nature player body subject, the implication may be a paradox. For those players, the use of computer games as a means of expressing interesting events and ideas must be obvious. Ethical implications of unethical game content. There we go. Wait, what? Implications of unethical game. It somehow deleted all of that. Cool. PP subject. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This implies that those players who are still developing this moral understanding should be prevented from exiting the game, or should only do so in controlled situations. Aha. The game, or should only do so in controlled situation. Yeah, people. I don't know. People are tend to avoid these controlled situations anyway. Oh, oh no, we mustn't expose people. You don't. You won't like what happens if you don't teach people at all. Control. Sorry, I'm absorbing myself and scratching my forehead. Not forehead. Oh, that feels so good. Sometimes scratching feels so good. Sorry. Control situation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For instance, in an educational environment, yeah. Understanding World War II using a game like Battlefield 1942 could be possible in the right setting, provided that players are mature enough to understand the implications of this game. This perspective puts the responsibility on the players who ought to develop an ethical understanding of games and their interpretational capacities within the game experience. Almost a lot of war games is actually propaganda tools. Nevertheless, game developers and designers also play a role due to their duties in the distributed responsibility network. Okay. What's Designers also play a role due to their duties in the distributed responsibility network. Their roles dependent on how they design and market their unethical content. Okay, cool. Dependent on how they design and market. The market is interesting. Is unethical content, how they promote it. Games should be allowed to include the possibility to interact with environments in an unethical fashion. Fashion, Grand Theft Auto and Manhunt are games in which is also showing some aspect of our cultural zeitgeist, but this game should not be marketed to the wrong audience. Mm-hmm. Zeitgeist. What is a zeitgeist? What's a world spirit? The general set of ideas, belief, feelings that is typical of a particular period in history. Showing some aspect. Okay. This is not the only response the game developer ought to consider. Violence or any other unethical content has to be included in the game not as a glorification of technology or because what does it mean, or because of the fascination for guns and fast actions that the main segment of your game's consumer feels. Unethical content has to be included in the game not as a glorification of technology or because of the fascination for guns. I mean, you can, but and fast action that the main segment of computer game consumer feel. Wow, cool games. Consumer feel. Unethical content has to be meaningful. If not, it's just going to be a fetish slop thing. It has to play a role in the process of experiencing the game, and that role has to be taken into consideration of the fact that playing the game is also interpreting the game experience from an ethical perspective. The process of experiencing the game, and that role has to take into consideration the fact that playing a game is also interpreting a game experience from an ethical perspective. This of unethical has to be justifiable within the ethical nature of the game experience, either as a way of creating meaningful challenge or as a tool for conveying an agenda. Ethical content has to be justifiable. Viable. Okay, cool. Within the ethical nature of the game experience. Either as a way of creating meaningful challenges or as a tool for conveying an agenda. Players are moral beings capable of ethical reasoning. In games are experiences that have a relatively encapsulated existence. But that does not mean that games do not affect the player ethical being, or that games bear no importance or effect of their experience. Games are powerful simulation tools that conveys worldviews, message, and values. Emptying game of ethical reflection, they are designed and using unethical content for its shock value as a marketing source means not only devaluing the possibilities of game as a means of expression, but also making products that are unethical objects. They are designed and using unethical content for its shock value as a marketing resource means not only devaluing the possibilities of games as a means of expression, but also making products that are unethical objects. Every game should, by design, take into account the ethics of their user, and that includes reflecting on how their ethical content is going to be implemented, and in which way players will understand and reflect upon it. There is nothing essentially wrong in games with unethical content. They do not. Okay. Essential. Essentially, okay. Wrong in games with unethical content. They do not foster the wrong values in human beings because player subjects with ethical capabilities experience them. But this does not mean that computer games can use unethical concept and expect their user not to be affected. Computer games designer and user have a great deal of responsibility when it comes to this content and the way it is experienced. To play and design computer games are both acts that requires ethical maturity, but which also bring forth interesting ethical dilemmas. Computer games can and ought to use their language and simulation capacities to create interesting experiences that make their users reflect upon their being, culture, and society. But games will only be able to do so when their use of ethical content is dictated by a creative, reflective drive, and not just pressures of marketing or the idea that computer games are just children entertainment. You can see a lot of that. Games are a way to make bucks. Effect studies and the ethics of computer games. This file computer games I have just written about pose an interesting question. Do the actions performed in the game world affect our moral fabrics and or body and psyche? The focus on violent computer games is mostly concerned with the values of the game object, not as much with the effects of the game on users. For answering that other question, there's a relevant and off-site body of research focused on analyzing the effects on violent games on their user. This research has been used as spearhead by the media and policy makers when it comes by defining the morality of gamers in large cultural perspective. By effect studies, I am referring to psychological and empirical studies that argue for a causal link between the game ethical content and the player behavioral patterns. In what follows, I will formulate a criticism of this effect studies research from the analytical framework of computer game ethics that I have argued for. Ooh, interesting. Which I already cited back then, so we'll see how you deal with this. There's such an effect of human games on the behavior of their user is a reasonably well consolidated field of research in psychology, a field that, much like many similar studies done with other media as targets, has yet to provide conclusive data on the correlation between violent or sexual content and what I will here call unethical behavior. Really? Nevertheless, there is some evidence that may point to a certain relationship between the violent content of a game and the unethical behavior of players. This connection is of extreme interest for understanding the ethical footprint of computer games in our culture. Sorry, I'm just checking some stuff. There we go. The connection is of extreme interest for understanding the ethical footprint of computer games. Wait, I already read that. Okay, it's not my intention to delve deep into a methodological discussion about the studies, as our methods are not compatible. Yes, the methods are not compatible. Which, let's see, well, what do you mean by that? Essentially, FX studies use a recognition method to link use of games by specific samples of players with their violent aggressive behavior and other issues like school failure and media desensitization. Empirical correlation. Oh. I was in page somewhere around here. Furthermore, the goals we are seeking to achieve are not similar. While FX studies tries to connect unethical content with unethical behavior, I have tried to define what constitutes the ethic of computer games and how we can analyze them. Wait. So, while FX studies tries to connect content and behavior, everyone would say that we don't analyze them. Nevertheless, there's an obvious connection between the field of FX studies and the interest in the ethic of games. In the intersection of these two areas, I found some substantial flaws concerning the ethical discourse and rhetoric that informs many ethics studies. I shall present argument against the use of these effect studies as a tool for analyzing computer game ethics. Ah, alright. Ethics studies focus considerably on the content of computer game. Most of this research take a starting point on how the game world looks, the audiovisual representation of the player actions in computer games. This is their main ethical flaw. These studies can say much about the relations between graphical interpretation, representation of the player's actions, and the effects on their out-of-the-game behavior, yet they are leaving out the complex network of elements that also makes playing computer games a moral experience. Indeed. Complex network of elements that also make playing computer games a moral experience. While the results concerning physical reactions are interesting, pointing at some correlation between actions in the game and directions of our bodies when playing, this study seems to deny the fact that players are moral beings, and that we are not slaves to our corporal primordial reactions. So basically, Miguel says that, yeah, the study might say that, but the study also ignores the fact that not most people, that people are also capable of this to deny the whole situation thing, to be an exempt of the studies. Okay. The content of computer games, their fictional element is relevant for the ethical construction of meaning, and thus, these effect studies do make a valid point. I'm not advocating here, also the studies only fuse the unethical content, not the entirety of the game, which I'm not advocating here a total disregard of content when it comes to concerning the effect of computer games on their users. Nevertheless, in this book, I'm arguing for a network ethical system that explains the moral nature and structure of computer games beyond their fictional content, which, though relevant, is not alone in the configuration of the experience of a computer game, and thus it should not be considered as the only source of behavioral conditioning. Ethics studies tends to fall into guilty victim user conception. Players are victims of game systems that force them to behave violently, both in the game and outside the game by direct correlation of the game content and the actions outside the game experience. But players are also guilty of engaging in those activities, both the violence and the act of playing a game. Ethics studies tends to consider player moral zombies, unable to critically reflect on what they do inside or outside the game. This consideration is in itself an unethical statement, since it is treating ethical agents as a mere input providers who cannot reason on their own. As I have repeatedly argued throughout this book, players are ethical beings capable of deep and complex critical reflection. Yeah. I'm searching for my phone. Where's my phone? There are recent claims from both computer game critics and from other social institutions about computer game training disabling users, making them less sensitive to committing violent agents. Against this reveal discourses damaging from computer game culture, the player as a passive puppet in the hands of mischievous game designers. But before I present my criticism of this perspective, I believe it is necessary to set clearly once again that there is a certain truth to the importance given to the game content and to the relatively passive role of the player, though the perspective are often misguided. BRB, 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 BRB. Sorry, I'm checking my fucking phone right now because there are ships that I need to claim before the second day arrive, which is almost here. Oh god, I miss a lot of ships now. Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Uh, claim? Yeah, I'm playing mobile game. What you gonna do about it? Hmm? Hey, skip. What do you mean? Dice. Dice of cringe. Oh my fucking god. Wait, what? Who's the option? Jason's amazing. I'm gonna go for it. No, wait, what? Did I did a late check-in? Oh shit, I did, didn't I? No, wait, what? I missed a day? When? That fucking sucks. When did I miss a day? That's so unbelievable. So you're telling me I haven't played for a whole day and now it's going to be a second day? Oh, I'm losing so much progress. Really? Oh my fucking god. When? I didn't even realize. I was like probably so tired that I didn't even realize it. There we go. What else? What else did I miss? This? Okay, cool. I missed a lot of shits. This is unbelievable. Hold on. I'm so pissed that I missed a lot of shits. Okay, I can drop it. My phone for a bit. John can learn the answers. Behavior conditioning. Ugh, it sense of this. Uh huh. Players needs to be moral. I'm lost. Where was I? It's necessary. There's certain truth. Blah blah. Players are morally mature to understand the ethical values of the game. Where moral maturity is achieved through time, maybe some playing game and reflecting upon them. It is knowledge that we as a player have acquired. This ludic moral maturity implies that the player can engage critically in the gameplay experience, seeing their own game culture, their self-perception as players, and their ethical being outside the game as evaluation tools for the morality of their acts. If we don't have moral maturity to understand the ethical implication of computer game, then we are actually being non-virtuous being, and games can be considered as a source of harm. Hence the importance of age regulation, codes, game education, and other social and cultural institutions. For now, suffice to say that the content of computer games does play a role in the ethical construction of meaning and the effects of the game, but its true importance has to be seen from a wider, more inclusive perspective. What effects studies have consistently left out of their research are two elements of fundamental importance for the ethics of the game as an object experience and the moral presence of the player. To leave out the importance of game design and the ethical affordances that it may have means not addressing a very important issue: how the content of the game is designed to be interacted with, and how the game system encourages and rewards the player participation. The design of the game is a fundamental element in the ethical construction of meaning in computer games, and it is also highly relevant for the perception and interpretation that players have of those ethical values. Furthermore, because it is the game as object, and thus the game as design, that initially creates the subjectivity of the player, and because it does also understand underlying structure that makes the game more playable, the game design has to be taken into consideration when it comes to evaluating the effect of computer games. When playing a computer game that is poorly balanced, frustration may arise, and in some personalities, anger through frustration. Wait. The game design has to be taken into consideration. When playing a game that's poorly balanced, frustration may arise, and in some personalities, anger through frustration. For example, as a thought experiments, playing a platform game in which there are no saves and in which the jumps have to be extremely well calculated or the level will start wasting all the progress achieved during gameplay might foster in the player a state of frustration that could make them angry. I know some games like that. This game, especially games that are developed in a way to make people angry. Getting over it. This game can have colorful, bright, innocuous content like a clone of the Mario games, and yet it can produce an unwanted physical effect. As I have argued before, the design of a game is partially responsible for the ethical configuration of the player's subject and her relation with the game world and her interaction with other agents using the afforded game system mechanics. The design of a computer game is not neutral. Okay. Game designers elaborate complex challenge system that pretends to engage us in a ludic activity. As I have argued before, part of our player's subjectivity is determined by the game system and its affordances. A game design in which cheating and harassing the opponents is encouraged, helping those who are ruthless, is unethical. Really? Is it? Cheating and harassing. Well, is it though? I mean, it could be unethical. Is it? Question mark? A game like Burnout 3 in which players race against each other trying to crush opponent cars would be unethical again if the game design was not balanced and some player could harass others without being punished. Balancing the game in this case is creating an appropriate equilibrium between actions of the player can do against other agents and negative consequences of those actions. Another case of unethical design due to balancing issues is Age of Empires 2, The Age of Kings. When players in difficult single-player mode, the game computer-controlled civilization receive an advantage in the number of resources that they are given and the speed with which they can harvest them. Finally, the example of this, the privileged stage strategies in Warcraft, illustrate other possibilities of unethical design that ought to be considered because they affect and harm players and their ludic experience, since they systemically allow for some players to defeat others by virtue of failed game design. Interesting. A proper expansion of FX studies method will be to incorporate an evaluation of game design and questions directed to the player as a part of their empirical method. So you cannot just like jumble up a bunch of gamers and call it a day. You need to, hey, what sort of games is being played, the design of it. By routing the content of the game to the way it's designed, researchers should be able to point out those ethical affordances that might of relevance to their study on the effects of computer games. And I'll point out how design affects it. Then the result of the research will take into account how the actions that player can perform in computer games are partially determined by game design that has the goal of limiting player behavior and encouraging certain actions. If we interview 100 people that plays getting over it, and then they all say they're becoming more violent, well, yes. Different if you interview 100 people that plays Harvest Moon. Actually, I could argue I become more violent by playing Harvest Moon. Nevertheless, taking into account the game design is not enough to validate the ethical relevance of FX studies. It is essential to overcome the discourse of the guilty victim and to define the player as a moral being who has responsibility and reflective capacities when it comes to playing games. FX studies cannot disregard the moral qualities of players. They should not be treated as moral zombies, for they do actually behave ethically in the context of playing computer games. FX studies in general do not ask the players about the reflection of the game, but they ask them to correlate the act of playing the game with their feelings and actions immediately after playing the game, and a while after doing so. They do not ask about the reflections, but just the feeling. Therefore, they are not instead about how the player perceives the act of playing a violent computer game, and there's no depth. There's no depth in the understanding of what player feels and thinks when engaging in a violent computer game. There's no depth in the what is the violence we're talking about here. Players are not entitled to reflect upon the morality or even nature of their acts. Their status as moral being is disdain, thus leaving out most of what makes computer game ethical experience. Incorporated in effect studies. Effect studies discard players' moral agent, and thus their work has to be taken just as a partial view of how some content of some games may influence some actions, but not the moral fabric of a player or a community. Ah. Partial view of some content of some games may influence some actions, but not the moral fabric of a player or a community. Yeah, they can become much more violent, but are their moral fabric broken? Only by reassuring us that researchers knowledge the ethical being of computer game players can effect studies yield relevant information about how computer games affect their users' behavior. Ethics studies can be a very valuable tool for understanding how players relate to the game experience and how the game experience carries ethical values from inside the games outside the game and the other way around. The relations between the game and the player needs to be charted. Charted. If we want to understand how some design choices affect the player ethical reflections and her behavior, and how those changes may affect the way she relates to the game. Serious ethics studies should take into consideration the ethical construction of game as experience. Only then would we be able to answer some of the most interesting questions regarding the actual effect of computer games in our moral universe. In this chapter, I have approached two of the most interesting ethical issues that computer games create: their violent content and the possible effects that this content has on game players. Throughout my reflection on these two closely intertwined topics, I have insisted on the importance of understanding this ethical agency not as quality that is always fully developed, but that we, as cultural beings, develop and learn through our experience as players. To be a player is a learning process that takes years, and to be a good player from a moral perspective, to be aware of the ethical choices and dilemmas that computer game pose, to be able to act according to our moral fabric is a lifelong process. Back to my phone. Quick, quick, quick. I have 10 minutes left before shit hits the fan, and I don't like it. Cool. Sorry. I got a few minutes to do shits. Fast, gotta go fast, gotta go fast. Come on, fast, 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 fast. What else? What else? What else? What else? What else do I do? Thank you, government free. Yeah, thank you, thank you. Oh shit, I need to, less than 10 minutes, son. Less than 10 minutes, come on. What else? What else? What else can I fucking do? Yes. And then, shit. Map. Less than 10 minutes until daily resets. I don't like this. Okay, fishing. I'm speed running, sorry. There we go. Speed run. Speed run. Oh no! Oh shit, that's good. Okay, that's bad. That's really good. I fucking get a notification like suddenly and it's terrifying. There we go. There we go. There we go. Let's fucking go. Almost time. Time is almost over. This. Yay! Oh, this is a pog. This is a poggers. This is a poggers. More, yes! Hawk. I have limited time, so better be fast. Sorry, this is stressing me out. That can wait. There's more? Oh, shit. Hmm. Yes, there we go. Let's go. I'm locked in. I'm locked the fuck in. God, I'm such. have such a horrible ranking right now. And this resets every day now! Oh, this fucking sucks balls. Wait, how do you get 600 now? Oh, the quest resets every day, okay. There we go. Oh, I cannot believe my daily fucking get resetted. That's fucking sucks. Oh no, I don't think I can do that. I still need what? Oh. Wait, maybe I can. Oh shit, that's the wrong button. No, I'm wasting my money. Man, I love wasting my fucking in-game money. What else? What else do I do? Okay, everything went good. It's 3 more minutes, but like, yay. I can relax now. Mm-hmm. To be a player, learning process that take you, some readers may be now wondering, is it ethically correct to play computer games with unethical content? To those who ask this question, I can only answer. Think about who plays. Is the player mature enough? Does he or she understand the meaning of rules? Is the game respectful of that ethical agency? Player ethical beings. We can reflect about our action in games, and we have the moral tools that distinguish between the values in a game and the values we live by. So, is it ethical? Is it ethically correct to play computer games with unethical content? Are the player mature enough? Does he or do they understand the meaning of the rules of the gameplay or of the game world? Is the player aware of their ethical agency or their ethical being? Is the game respectful of that ethical agency? Players are ethical beings. We can reflect about our actions in the game. We have the moral tool to distinguish between the values in the game and the values we live by. But we players, developers, parents, citizens, and politicians have the duty to foster this culture of game ethics. We have to foster the development of ethical players and the maturing of video games as expressive media. This duty is a fundamental part of our ethical being and obligations towards others and society. Every game poses ethical problems for their moral content and the ways they affect us, but I insist, as players, our ethical capacities allows us to experience those problems not only as challenges, but also, and more importantly, as opportunities for experiencing moral, for testing and applying our virtues, and for building within the game a successful ethical experience. And we have reached chapter 7. Yippee! And that's quite a lot. So thank you all for being here. We will go to other. I will like stop right now and continue for other things right now. Thank you all. See you all later then. Thank you for attending. Bye.